Hello, and welcome to episode 30
of Mo Money,
the Investing Show for Millennials by a Millennial, where our goal is to educate, entertain, and empower a new generation of investors. I am, of course, the commander-in-chief of this channel, the boss, the leader, the head of Mo Money, your host, MC Mo. Let's get to the show. There's a little over a month until the election of 2016. Make sure you go out and register to vote if you have not. And a lot is riding on this election. They say it every election, but this truly feels like one of the most crucial elections in our nation's young history, and we are left with two less than desirable candidates, but in America, we are the greatest at making do with what we got. First debate was this week, and it was pretty boring. They did not discuss a lot of their economic policies, which would be great if that meant the government would be getting out of the economy and let the free markets, actually be free. But unfortunately, that's not the case at all. It's just whoever came up with the debate question were not very interested in their economic policies, apparently. All they talked about was job creation. Neither of them, which had very convincing plans on how they would go about creating new jobs. So we have one candidate who has never created a job in her entire life, and a candidate with a not so respectable or admirable business career. But let's stop and ask ourselves an important question before we start talking about our candidates. The question is, how the hell did we end up here? No, I'm not talking about how did we end up with these two horrible candidates. I'm talking about how the hell did our presidential candidates end up interviewing for the most important CEO job in the country, as opposed to just running for president and governing, whatever. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. 1776, the greatest country ever created, is born. Our founding fathers fought and gained independence from the British. They were no longer shackled by their tariffs, taxes, and large central government. They were free! And this freedom was important to them, and they championed the cause of individual freedom and the right to follow your own path to prosperity without government interference. If you wanted to move to South Carolina for a job, great. If business A wanted to do business with business B, fantastic. If plantation owner Jim wants to own slaves, well, that wasn't that great at all, but we fixed that eventually. Anyways, from the founding up until the 20th century, the American economy was based on the free market and laissez-faire economics, aka just let it do what it do economics, with minor exceptions. This led to the industrialization and growth of America into one of the strongest economies in the world. But then at the start of the 20th century, the people of the USA had grown fearful of the monopoly men they deemed as dangerous capitalists. Men such as J.D. Rockefeller, who is the emperor of oil, Andrew Carnegie, the emperor of steel, and J.P. Morgan, the emperor of finance. The citizens demanded action, and only one man was bold enough to swing his big stick at them: Teddy Roosevelt. Roosevelt initiated the government action of trust busting, which was the act of breaking up large trusts and monopolies that they deemed to be too large and too powerful. This was truly the beginning of our government's long love affair with economic intervention. Teddy Roosevelt started a push against big businesses that was followed by his successors, William Howard Taft and Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson signed a bill creating the Federal Reserve. Great job, dumbass. Fast forward to Franklin Delano Roosevelt's unprecedented economic interventionism during the Great Depression, fixing prices, massive spending, etc. Then we fast forward to the 1960s, and we have Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society, which created Medicaid, Medicare. 1970s, Nixon lifts the gold standard, creating floating currency and government money backed by nothing. Next is Reaganomics, massive tax cuts, deregulation. Clinton gained a boost from a tech boom. He ran a surplus on the budget. Bush returned to Reaganomics, tax cuts, deregulation, massive deficit spending. Obama did more regulation, more deficit spending. As you can see, over the years, the president has become more of a CEO than ever before. Do you think George Washington worried about trade policies, job creation, and other things the president is asked about today? No way! That wasn't any concern of his. Maybe a personal concern because he was a businessman himself, but certainly did not view it as his presidential responsibility to create jobs as well. So that's how we arrived here. A small mutation in government power over 100 years has developed into a government who moves an economy depending on their influence. Look no further than September 21st, 2015. 10:55 a.m. All was calm in the stock market, just an average day of trading. At 10:56, Hillary Clinton sends out a tweet lambasting price gouging by pharmaceutical companies, and within 2 hours, the NASDAQ index that tracks biotech and pharmaceutical stocks crashes down 5% in only 2 hours. She had announced she was running for president only 6 months before that. The primaries hadn't even started yet. People were so nervous about what her potential presidency meant for the future of pharmaceutical companies that everybody ran for the hills. It's absolutely mind-blowing, the power of a tweet and the government. So now that you see the impact one of these two idiots could have on the future of our country's economy, let's run down their positions on economic policy. First, jobs. Trump says that he is going to be the best jobs-creating president God has ever created. How? Well, he's not exactly clear. He says he will renegotiate trade deals because he's the best negotiator ever, which will bring back jobs from China and Mexico. Clinton says she will invest in job training programs and community college. Also, she will invest in broadband networks, infrastructure, and clean energy. This will, of course, create jobs because politicians and the government have always been the best at deciding where to reallocate and invest money. A lot better than the free markets, who have no idea what people want. Clinton has also been adamant on supporting a raise in the federal minimum wage, saying people deserve more, they deserve livable wages. Will this help create jobs or will it hurt? Trump has not said much about minimum wage other than it should be left up to the states. Good move. Just dump that responsibility on the states. Next is trade. Trump is not that much about free trade. He supports tariffs, or essentially fees, for imported foreign goods. This helps protect American businesses from competition, but stifles growth for those who depend on foreign suppliers. So I guess it's good for some jobs, not so much for consumers, and could create a trade war. Clinton supports trade agreements that open up our markets to those from around the world, but at the same time create security for American workers. She's against TPP, claims she's always been against it. Whatever. Free trade is important for all economies, so we cannot be messing that all up with complex trade deals. Next up is taxes. Trump is calling for some good old-fashioned Reaganomics tax cuts on everybody, not just the rich. He wants tax cuts across the board, including for corporations from 39% down to 15%, putting us on par with Iraq and Albania. Awesome company. Cutting taxes increases profits, which spurs innovation and real capital spending on things like equipment and expansion, which creates jobs. That's the plan for Trump, and it makes sense. But it would also reduce federal revenue because as much as people wish that the USA was run more like a business, it's not. If the USA were any type of business, it'd be the mob. The way they make money is essentially stealing it from you via taxes because, let's be honest, nobody would pay taxes if they didn't have to. Clinton, on the other hand, has said taxes on the middle class and poor will be lowered, but really no specific. And she wants to create new deductions to help people ease some of the pain of their tax bills. But she's been adamant about raising the taxes on the rich and closing up all tax loopholes so that the rich will have to pay their fair share. She's also vowed to go after corporations looking to leave the country to incorporate themselves elsewhere with lower corporate tax rates. Finally, and most importantly, is debt. Like I discussed in the episode 2 weeks ago, the debt is something we should seriously be discussing, but neither candidate seems to really care to talk about. Trump claims he will wipe out the $19 trillion debt in 8 years. Wow. But by shrinking the tax revenue on the U.S. with his tax cuts and increasing spending on military defense, veterans healthcare, Social Security, Medicaid, immigration forces, building a wall, increasing police, impossible to think he can pay for all this. He may be the king of debt, but he is worthless when it comes to getting out of it. Our creditors aren't going to accept being stiffed on payments like he's done in the past. Then there's Hillary, who wants to increase spending on social programs, healthcare, education, infrastructure, clean energy. Look, unless you raise all of our taxes to 100%, it's going to be hard to pay for all of that, no matter how much you tax the rich and the corporations. These presidential candidates are writing huge checks that our taxpayer butts are not able to cash. How about balancing the budget with some cutting of spending? Why is that so off? Why is our country so obsessed with having so much debt and thinking that we can just print more money to pay it all off? That's not how it works. At least not for the long run. There you have it, folks. That's these candidates' economic policy. At a time when a lot of the millennial generation is struggling, looking for meaningful work, we need a real change. The government is not likely to decide with either of these candidates to get out of the bed with the economy and scale its presence down. So we are stuck with an economy based on a large central government, and neither of these two have very promising solutions. What we need is better, high-paying jobs, better educated young people for the jobs of the new world. We need a fair tax code. We need a responsible, balanced federal budget. We need help. We cannot depend on this douchebag and Miss Turd Sandwich to save us. They're not superheroes. My advice to you, do not be discouraged. Take some free classes. Learn some things online. Seek a mentor. Take a low-paying job in a field that you love. Just whatever you do, constantly be improving yourself. Constantly be making yourself great. That way you won't need a president to make America great for you. You'll be busy doing it for yourself. This is our America to make great again, not theirs. Thank you so much for watching. You know we'll be here every week with a new episode. For now, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Like me on Facebook. Mo Money. Signing out.
I never let the mic magnetize me no more, but it's fighting me, inviting me to rhyme. I can't hold it back. I'm looking for the line.